Story 1, The Art Room. I've never shared this with anyone. Not even my wife. This happened in 2015, when I was a substitute teacher filling in for a high school art class in upstate New York. It was just a 3-day gig while the regular teacher was out for surgery. The students were fine. The room was quiet. But on the second day, we had a lockdown. And I still can't explain what I saw. The art room was in the oldest wing of the school, stone walls, creaky floors, and those high, narrow windows no one ever opened. It always smelled faintly of turpentine and wet wood. That morning was gray, cold. You could see your breath if you stood near the window. The overhead lights were motion-sensitive and slow. They'd flicker on a second or two after movement, then buzz faintly. There was no intercom speaker in that room, just a red lockdown poster taped near the door. The lockdown came during third period, no warning, just the announcement. Lockdown. This is not a drill. I followed the protocol. Locked the door. Turned off the lights. Told the kids to get low behind the supply shelves. The room fell dead silent. But then, the motion light turned on. There was no movement. Everyone was frozen. A second later, it shut off. Then came the second thing. From the back storage closet, a small utility door no taller than a filing cabinet. I heard a knock. 3 slow knocks. No one reacted. I whispered to the students, asking if someone had hidden in there earlier, but they shook their heads. And then I saw it. In the far mirror across the drying racks, a wide rectangular mirror used for self-portraits. Someone was standing behind us. Tall. Very still. But when I turned around, no one was there. Just the kids. And the light flicked off again. We waited in that silence for what felt like forever. Then the door handle twitched. Not jiggled, it twitched, like someone pressing against it gently, then letting go. That's when the girl closest to the door gasped. I turned, she was staring at the floor. There were wet footprints. Bare feet. Just 2 of them. Pointing inward. Right by the door. The carpet around them was bone dry. No prints leading to them. Just those 2, pointed toward us. Eventually, the lockdown lifted. We were told it was a false alarm. A parent trying to force entry during a custody dispute. But when I asked about the footprints, the janitor just shook his head. He said, "That's not the first time." And then quietly added, "That closet doesn't open anymore." It was sealed after a fire. In 1998. I only taught that class one more day. But I never turned my back to that mirror again. Story 2, The Boiler Room Hallway. This happened when I worked nights as a school custodian back in 2012. It was a small rural middle school in Wisconsin. I'd worked there 6 years and thought I knew every inch of the place. But one winter night, during a sudden lockdown drill, which no one had warned me about, I ended up stuck near the basement access hallway. That part of the building, it never felt right. And what happened down there still gives me chills when I close my eyes. The hallway outside the boiler room was narrow, low-ceilinged, and always colder than the rest of the school. The walls were exposed cinder block, stained from age and steam leaks. There was a faint ticking sound that came from the pipes, like something pacing slowly overhead. I'd avoid that area unless something actually needed fixing. That night, I was replacing a light panel when the emergency lockdown lights flashed red. No alarm. Just the automated voice. Lockdown. Lock all doors. Lights off. Silence. Even the radios cut out. I ducked into a small storage closet at the end of the boiler hallway and shut the door. There was no lock, just a flimsy handle. Inside, it smelled like rust and old mop heads. The kind of place you can feel the dust in your lungs. I waited. It was supposed to be 15 minutes. But around minute 5, I heard something on the other side of the door. Scraping. Like fingernails dragging lightly across the wood. Then a single knock. Soft. Measured. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then the light under the door flickered. Not the kind of flicker a bulb makes. It was like something moved past it, blocking it for a second. Twice. And then I saw it. On the opposite wall inside the closet, where light shouldn't reach. A faint shadow, long, thin. It twitched. Like it was watching me. That's when I reached for my flashlight. The batteries were brand new. But it didn't turn on. Instead, it clicked softly, once, twice, and then, from behind the shelf. Something whispered. "You're not supposed to be here." It wasn't angry. It sounded disappointed. Like I'd broken a rule no one had explained. I opened the door and bolted, not even checking if the lockdown had cleared. But the hallway had changed. The far door, the one leading back upstairs? Gone. Just smooth cinder block where it used to be. Eventually, I made it back upstairs through the boiler room's emergency hatch. The lockdown had ended nearly 20 minutes before I emerged. The principal told me, calmly. "You must have gotten confused in the dark. There's no closet at the end of that hallway." There never was. But the next day, in my locker, there was a smudge of black soot across my work gloves. And on the back of one, written faintly in chalk, were 5 words. "Do not return at night." Story 3, The Science Wing Silent Alarm. I was a student when this happened, senior year of high school, spring of 2019. Our school had an unusually high number of lockdown drills. They told us it was policy after a few nearby incidents. But that Thursday afternoon, around 2:20 p.m., we went into a lockdown that wasn't a drill. I remember it clearly because I was in the science wing alone, making up a missed chemistry lab. The rest of the class had already finished. And I wish I'd just stayed home that day. The science wing was in the back of the school, newer than the rest of the building, but poorly maintained. All glass walls and metal doors, with those motion-activated lights and security sensors wired into the ceiling. Outside, it was raining hard, a dull, constant roar against the windows. You could feel the vibration of thunder in the floor. The room I was in had glass walls on 3 sides, but only one narrow hallway door. I was alone. Until I wasn't. The lights dimmed, and the silent alarm flashed above the smartboard. Lockdown, silent mode, do not speak. It was the first time I'd seen that alert. No announcement. No sound. Just red text and a blinking amber light. I stood up and walked to the door to turn the lock. But it was already locked. From the outside. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Then, across the hallway in the adjacent lab, a room that should have been empty. The lights turned on. I pressed my face to the glass wall. Nothing moved, but a single chair was spinning slowly at the nearest workstation. And then the smartboard in my room lit up. No one had touched it. It flashed a diagram, human anatomy. And started labeling parts in some language I didn't recognize. Then it glitched. The outline of the human body shifted. Changed into something that looked wrong. Too tall. The arms too long. And it turned its head toward me. I backed up, heart pounding, and turned off the screen manually. The lights dimmed again. That's when the fire door at the end of the hallway slowly creaked open. And someone, or something, stepped in. Not running. Not trying to hide. Just walking, quietly. Deliberately. I dropped to the floor behind the lab tables. From where I crouched, I could barely see through the slits in the cabinets. Shoes. But not school shoes. Black. Polished. Like something you'd wear with a uniform, military, maybe. They stopped outside the room. Then the sensor above the door blinked red. And the door unlocked itself. No one touched it. It just clicked open. When the lockdown ended, 14 minutes later, the door was open again. No one ever came in. No explanation was given. They said it was a malfunction. But later that week, I checked the fire door cameras. We weren't supposed to, but my friend in AV let me. There was no one on the footage. But the sensor log recorded one entry. Faculty override, 2:23 p.m. Right when the door opened. No teacher had that clearance. And the room? It hasn't been used since.